Electric Avenue, and then we'll take it higher.
Hey everyone, welcome back. It's Manish Jain or Mr. Jain, and you are watching Electric Avenue. This is episode number 16. This is an episode that's got a ton of new information around the government's policy around EVs. So it's been the most exciting video I think I've done because I've been waiting to talk about this for months and months, years and years, because it just hasn't happened. And you'd hear all the rumors, and it finally got released in March, the new Indian EV policy. But let's talk about the four things we're going to discuss in this month's episode of Electric Avenue. So as usual, we're going to cover the monthly registration numbers. And since this is the end of the financial year of 2023-2024, we'll also do a wrap up of the overall numbers that have been sold in the country for that financial year. And of course, number two is the recent EV news and launches, which includes a quick blurb around the EV policy. Number three is I was able to see the new BYD Seal on the roads just maybe 4 or 5 days ago. So that was something that was recently launched, and I got to see it on the road just as quickly as it was launched. And the fourth thing, which I have been yapping about for the last couple of minutes, is the new India EV policy that the government has released. That's the Ministry of Heavy Industries, I believe, MHI, released it, and we will talk about it. And I think this is really the moment that the government is really hoping to kind of kickstart the EV revolution in India. I think everything else was just kind of, table stakes, kind of onesie twosies, but this is the big thing. Hopefully, as they say in cricket, this is the sixer that really launches, India as an EV manufacturing hub. So as usual, let's first get into the monthly registration numbers. Okay, so here are the EV car sales registration for March 2024. You know what I've done though? I've decided to sort based on the total amount. So you can kind of see this is, going in ascending order. But if you look at the March sales numbers, as usual, Tata Motors is at around 6,400 units. MG Motor is around 1,000. And all the way down, nothing really earth-shattering. I was able to finally get some data around Audi, Porsche. As you can see here, for many months, I wasn't getting much of the data. And as always, I'd like to just thank Autocar India, EV Reporter, Vahan, FADA, OEMs, and of course, our good friends at Twitter for me to be able to crowdsource all this data from multiple sources. But anyways, as I said, the monthly numbers, nothing new. It's always the same. And I'm hoping that changes soon with the new EV policy. But let's take a look at the total numbers that we've got for the year. And as you can see here, total, we've done around 89,000 units. So just shy of 1 lakh or 100,000 units. Let me just kind of break this out. So as you can see, the big heavyweight, of course, Tata Motors, they've got close to about 70% of the market share. Then you've got MG Motor at around, maybe this is probably 13, 14%. And then all the way down, M&M at around probably 7, 8%. But the real big thing, here is, BYD, which announced their third vehicle. They're at around 1,700 units, vehicles. Surprisingly, BMW, I did not expect to see that. Both of them pretty neck and neck, BYD versus BMW. And imagine BMW units are all, the CBUs completely brought in, shipped in, and probably 115, 130% import duty, God only knows. But they're spendy. And then, of course, it really drops down when you look at Volvo, Mercedes, Kia, 429 units. I think when they first launched the EV6, they said they're going to do about 200 units. And of course, they've just smashed through that with close to 430, maybe even more. Porsche at 112. And sadly, Jaguar only has 7 units. So just imagine the Tata Group kind of has the number one and the last one. This is the Jaguar Land Rover, JLR, and of course Tata Motors. So they kind of bookend both the number one sales and the lowest sales of an EV in India. So of course, as usual, nothing earth-shattering with the numbers. I think it's good. 90,000 units ain't bad. And I'm hoping in the next couple years, next couple months, maybe we can see more and more sales coming and more increase in numbers, and hopefully different product portfolios being offered on the high end, the low end, the mid range, all of that. That's what I'm hoping for, and let's see what we can do. So that's the EV car sales for March 2024. All right, next up on the docket is EV news, and we've got three really amazing stories. These are not like small things, they're actually amazing. So the first one, and of the three, this is probably the smallest of the news articles, but BYD is finally launching their third model. It's called the BYD Seal. This was announced, I think, many months ago. It got delayed. It was supposed to launch at the end of 2023, and here we are in the first quarter of 2024, and it's now just getting launched. But this is the BYD Seal. It's their four-door sedan, and the pricing was finally announced. I think last month they announced that the vehicle was coming, but they finally announced the pricing. So it starts at around 41 lakhs and goes up to 53 lakhs for their high performance, which I think it does 0 to 60. I forgot the numbers, but it is pretty good overall. And as you can see here, this is what the BYD Seal looks like. This was at the launch event. So here that talks about the different ranges, anywhere from 510 to 650K. And then on the performance version, of course, 580K because it's a little bit less because, it's got all-wheel drive. So it's got two motors versus, a rear motor in the other two versions. And if I'm not mistaken, I think the 0 to 60, maybe like 3 seconds, maybe 4 seconds even. I'm getting lost in these numbers because honestly, they're all just really fast now with electric. So that's been kind of exciting on the BYD Seal. But I'm actually kind of surprised. I recently just saw a TV interview where they talked about, the emergence of BYD globally. And they said that the BYD has launched a new product called the BYD Seal, and that's priced around $11,500 in international markets, which means that would do really well in India. But of course, I'm sure that would, of course, compete with the Tatas, the Mahindras. So they've kind of said, let's wait on that till maybe they can start manufacturing it locally. But, here's a good comparison of the Seal that I mentioned versus the Seal that is being launched in India. And of course, here it says the starting price is around $22,000. That, of course, is, based on no tariffs, no import duties, nothing. And of course, we've got that here in India. And if you want to know what the Seal looks like, the Seal, this is what it kind of looks like. It's okay. It's not something I would say is lovable, but you know what? For basic transportation at $11,500, it ain't bad. Next up, and this is the big thing. The new EV policy from the government of India has finally been announced. So these are the big stats. I'm not going to go through right now. I'm going to do that in the deep dive. But bottom line, I really feel this is the event that everyone's been waiting for in the EV industry. And, I think it's a really good policy that they've framed. So this was, a graphic that I saw from CNBC. And then this is with the actual from the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, where they talk about some of the particulars of what they're trying to do. But as I said, we'll talk about it a little bit later. The main thing is they really want people to spend, close to $500 million in the country, which is great. So the more and more they can get of that, that just helps India. But yeah, that's super news. Next up, this is also pretty noteworthy, is, MG, which is Morse Garages, and JSW, that's Jindal Steelworks partnership. They have finally they talked about this going on for the last couple months, but they finally announced it. They had a big event here at NSCI Dome in Worli. And they talked about how they are going to work together, and JSW is going to take a stake in the new company called JSW MG Motor India. And the local Indian partnership will own about 51%, which is, I think, what the government wants to do, is they want some local involvement. And the investment is expected to go up to $5 billion. So that's about 40,000 crore by 2030. And I think this was a great quote that Mr. Sajjan Jindal had, where he says it's the Maruti moment that is really going to kick off the EV revolution in India, and let's just hope it does happen. So a little bit more information. Kind of funny. I didn't realize that people don't know that MG, although it has a lot of British, actually is British heritage, but is actually currently owned by a Chinese company called SAIC, and that is stands for Shanghai Automotive Industry Corporation, which is actually a state-owned venture. I think the government owns four different automotive companies in China, and this is one of them. It's the largest. So it's quite surprising that people don't know that. As you can see, they own quite a few different brands. They own MG. They've also got a partnership with Volkswagen. So SAIC is a monster in China, and I'm sure they want to bring that same kind of competitiveness here in India, and of course with MG and JSW. And of course, at the launch event, they talked about their MG4, MG5, all the other products. But the one that really stole all the headlines was this one called the Cyberster. It's a two-door, as you can see. It's got, of course, the scissor doors, that kind of go up, or as I call them, Lamborghini doors. And this one, I think, will come in at, they say, 40, 50 lakhs, but who knows now with the new EV policy, this may come in at very inexpensive numbers, and I could see it doing really well and almost turning it into a halo car for the JSW group. And of course, here they talk about what they expect to do. They want to capture, close to 33% of the new energy market. That's what they say. And what's really good is you can see, Sajjan's son Parth getting involved in this. And I think that's going to be his baby. Previously, or probably still is the director of JSW. And I'm sure this is going to be his baby to take it up. And by the way, I've seen him drive quite a few of EVs. I believe he's got an Audi e-tron SUV. I think it's a 55, and they've got a whole bunch. I've noticed over the last year or so, they've got a ton of EVs in the family. Probably just kind of see what's working. Little known fact, they own, I think, the only Nissan Leaf in the country. And they, I think it's a cream color. And I was told it's the only one in the country which they own. So good luck to them. I hope they really do well. Last but not least, I just wanted to kind of talk about, like I said, SAIC and MG. So, it started in 1924, and as you can see, it's had British ownership up until 2006. And then from there, it turned into a Chinese entity, and it still continues to be a Chinese entity. And this has happened with a lot of brands, so the name has died off. So then the assets gonna kind of get retaken. I think the same thing has happened with Lotus Cars, Volvo also. Volvo is owned by a Chinese company. So it's happening quite a bit. And I think that's where the Chinese have really doubled down and saying, hey, let's take those heritage names, let's redo them with new tech, and let's see what we can do by going to market. So that is the news in a nutshell. All right, so we are here at segment number 3. This is EV car spotting. I just talked about how BYD Seal, the number 3 car from the BYD group, is coming to India. And I happened to see it on the road just a couple days ago. So it looks really nice. As you can see from here, this is a rear shot. This is kind of from the rear. You can kind of see the rear door. Looked really good. I mean, I was just walking and I happened to see the rear taillights, and I'm like, that is a rear taillight I have never seen before. And sure enough, it was the BYD Seal. So I happened to see it earlier in the day, and then later at night, I saw it leave the house where the test drive was taking place. And as you can see here, it looks really good. I didn't realize that, this stuff up here also lights up. It looks really good. And that color, metallic gray, metallic silver, whatever that is, looks really nice on this. So that is the BYD Seal. I'm hoping to see more and more of these on the road, but yeah, looks really good. And I was really glad that I got a chance to spot it as quickly as it was announced and launched here in India. So that's a wrap up on car spotting. Well, we are at the last segment, and that is the deep dive. And this has got to be the best deep dive I've done because it's something I've been waiting to talk about and hoping the government would release something, and they finally did. So I know we briefly covered it under the news, but let's kind of dive into some of the particulars of this new policy. So the main thing is they want a minimum investment of, like I mentioned, they want a minimum investment of close to $500 million, which comes out to around, let me just change this color to something different. So it comes out to about 4,100 crore is what they're looking for as a minimum investment. And of course, there's no cap. Of course, why would there be a cap? I mean, who wants to say no to money? So you've got 3 years to set up your manufacturing units in India, and you need to also, between years 3 and years 5, you need to make sure at least 50% of the domestic value addition is coming locally. So that probably means other locally sourced components need to come from within India. So they're really trying to build an entire ecosystem. And so you have anywhere from 0 to 5 years to get things going. And then really at the end of 5 years, you need to have 50% of it being manufactured in India, or the components need to be manufactured in India, which is great because it kind of creates this entire downstream ecosystem in the EV space. So that means battery packs, it means motors, that means battery management systems, hopefully EVs, specific tires, all of that stuff. So it's really good. And so now if you achieve that, so I think the first thing is you have to sign up for this thing. You know what, we're going to throw down $500 million because we're a big EV company. And let's just say it's Tesla. And there's a reason why Tesla may come. Everyone is talking about China, the Gigafactory in China, but everybody is saying not so great to have something in China for geopolitical reasons. And India may actually be a winner in that. So let's say Tesla were to come to India. They would say, yes, we're definitely down for this. We're going to build a plant, hopefully, somewhere in Maharashtra or probably Gujarat. Who knows where it's going to be. And then if they do that, then for the first 5 years till they ramp up, they can import in close to 8,000 cars a year. And they can do that with an import duty of only 15%. Let me just kind of back this up. So 15%. So for year one, they can import up to 8,000 cars that have a CIF value, which is cost, insurance, and freight, of $35,000 or more. If they hit that number, $35,000 or more is what the value of the good is, then they're only going to charge an import duty of 15%, and they can do that for 8,000 units per year times 5, so that means 40,000 cars. Now the truth is, if you look at Tesla, they're doing close to what, probably 400 to 500,000 cars a quarter. Is really 4,000, is 8,000 units really a big deal for them? I think the whole idea for the government of India is to say, you know what, let's make this an export hub. You may be able to sell a decent amount of cars in India, but maybe not as many as you would like to, but turn it into an export hub for this entire region. And I think that's what they're really going after. So as you can see here, you've got set up manufacturers within a 3-year period. So I think there's some exact particularities that everyone's still kind of going back and forth on what it means. But high level is you've got 5 years to set up a plant, and you got to throw down $500 million minimum. And then if you do, then you can import cars at only 15%, which is great. So the number of $35,000 is great because it really means that, we're going to protect our Indian manufacturers like Tata, Mahindra, and potentially Maruti if that ever happens. And so it's really for the mid segment, I feel, so like, cars that are, let's say at a C class, BMW 3 Series, Audi A4 and above, Model 3 and above. So that's kind of what I'm thinking, like the low end of like these luxury cars. I think that's what they're really targeting, saying, hey, let's focus on that. So it's great. So this is the actual notification that came from the government of India under the Ministry of Heavy Industries. It's kind of nice, these circulars they send out, because this one talks a little bit about the background let me just kind of get this going again. So they talks about the background and introduction. India is currently the 3rd largest automotive market, which is great. They want to maybe push that to number 2. And it really talks about, what has predicted, what are the projections from Niti Aayog for 2030, which is great. And this is really, I thought was really useful, because here it really talks about what has the government in India done for the EV space. And they really break it down into 4 key areas. One was the PLI scheme for automotive and automobile components. The second one is a PLI scheme for advanced chemistry. So that is around cell chemistry. So let's get down to the anode, the cathode. Are we talking about lithium ion, LFP? Let's try to do that in India instead of buying the battery packs. The third is around FAME and FAME 2. Those were incentives to kind of get people to buy the products. And then the fourth one is around the state policies. So that is a perfect example is the state of Maharashtra. When you buy an EV, there is no registration tax on that, which is great. So, the government's has been trying to do things from different angles to kind of get people incented. The fifth thing that is not on here is reduce rates for electricity. Like I said, when I compare my OPEX cost of running my petrol Creta versus my EV, it's a huge difference. It comes out around to 14 rupees a kilometer for my Creta, and in my EV, I think it comes out to around 1 rupee 80 paisa per kilometer to run the cost. So that's OPEX, not CAPEX. CAPEX, of course, it's I don't even want to talk about it. So really, they should have kind of put that in there. Number 5 is, the enhanced electricity rates for EV vehicles. And then the other thing that was really interesting is they kind of give a example of, what would happen. So let's say you've committed $500 million, and then the CIF, the cost, insurance, and freight of every EV that is over $35,000, then they do a bunch of hocus pocus math, and they come up with this number. Bottom line is I think the government's really focused on this, and I think it's great. And I can't tell you how many times you'd hear about, oh yeah, Tesla's coming to India, or this is a very Tesla specific thing. I don't think this is very Tesla specific. What I think it is kind of saying, let's be open to the world. So obviously JSW, MG, they're definitely going to take advantage of this. I'm pretty sure BYD at some level will probably take advantage of this. Tesla, I'm still wondering if they will or not. I hope they do. And I think there's so many more. The one thing that while I was making this video, Xiaomi has just stormed onto the scene. And of course, they don't have any product in India, hence I didn't want to talk about it. But Xiaomi, the cell phone maker, has just announced their first vehicle, the SU7. And I would imagine even Xiaomi now may come to India for manufacturing of EVs. And in fact, the cell phone industry is a perfect example where a lot of these phones were made in China. Then the government kind of said, hey, we need to stop that. So we need to start having it locally manufactured. And now cell phones are being made in India. You look at the iPhone 15. I think the iPhone 15 and 15 Plus are manufactured down in Tamil Nadu or somewhere in that region. And who would have thought that was actually assembled and manufactured in India? But that's what they're trying to do, is get more and more and turn it into an export hub. And I think that's the same thing that's going to happen with the EV industry is, yes, you may sell 30, 40, 50, 100,000 cars in India, but really turn it into an export hub and get it out to other countries, like let's say in Africa, all the countries in Africa that can benefit from it, potentially even in Europe. So overall, I think it is a master stroke that the government of India has done with this EV policy. I'm super excited. I can't wait to see what's happening. And there's just so many more things that will come up because they're trying to build up the entire ecosystem. So I'm really waiting for someone to say, hey, we're focusing on battery recycling, which is, of course, another thing that's going to happen at some point. We're still in the early stages of the EV industry in India. And I think more and more over the next 3-4 years, there's so much potential. Anyways, guys, that is a wrap on episode 16 of Electric Avenue. As I said, this may run into being a very long episode because there's just so much information and so much great news that I was, waiting to share with you guys. Anyways, take care till the next episode. I'll see you in episode number 17 very soon. Take care.
Oh no, we're gonna rock down to Electric Avenue, and then we'll take